Hello, everyone. This is Bob Villarreal, uh, and it is June, let me see here, June 13th of 2016. Well, look, thank you for joining me for this tour, parts AA to DD of the fourth letter. Uh, I want to mention something right off here, and that is remember, the goal on these things is not to tell everything that's in the text or in the letter. I mean, that'd just be redundant. Uh, but it's to take you over the ground that they traveled so that you, the reader and viewer, can see what it's like. Now, for actual pictures, excuse me, for actual pictures, you can go to the images on the website, where I've got, as in other tours, other stuff on the website, just bunches and bunches of pictures. Okay, well, let's start out here. We're hovering over Cusco, my favorite South American city. My wife and I traveled there back in '78 to adopt our oldest daughter. It's such a fantastic place. I've been there 5 or 6 times during the intervening years. Well, let's go over what happened here. Right off, Pedro de Merida brings the reader up to date on what happened when the Almagro expedition left Arequipa after the Arequipa battle. And so he tells what happened when they came back to Cusco and so on. And so that's bringing us up to date. Now, he also tells of while he's there in Cusco, and he's convalescing, by the way. He's in a small little hospital there run by Father Molina. And but he meets Inés de Soares, who's the mistress of Valdivia. Now, this woman is special, all right? There are few women like her in all of history. So I hope you enjoy it throughout the fourth and fifth letters. He also tells a meeting with Pedro Valdivia, and then, of course, he welcomes his friend Vicente Montesinos, who comes to see him in the hospital. Uh, Now, Valdivia really wanted Pedro to join, and De Merida wanted to go back to Chile because he loved the place, he and Montesinos, and wanted to start a new life there. And so Valdivia hired him on, made him a first lieutenant, and he's going to be in the guiding group. Now, Valdivia asked him to put together a route report for the march from Cusco, or the journey from Cusco down to Copayapu. And so he did. You've seen those in the other letters too. And then he read it out to the guys that were going to be on this part of the journey. Now, there were 47 men and horses, 950 Indians, and 2,000 llamas, plus chickens, pigs, goats, and plant seeds for Nueva Extremo, Nueva Extremadura, or Chile. Valdivia and de Merida called Chile those three names throughout their letters. Now, it's something important to keep in mind here. Valdivia is going to Chile to, in essence, start a Spanish country. He's not going down there like Almagro looking for gold and so on, okay, and getting into big fights with Indians. He's going in peace, and you'll see that until, of course, well, you'll find out. He's eventually killed in a big famous battle with the Indians south of Santiago de Chile. But that's jumping ahead here. Now, so it's 950 Indians, his 47 men. They're going to be joined by more Spaniards along the way. But as I said, they're going there to farm, raise livestock, and to start villages. So they come in peace. Now, just by the by, Chile was awarded to Valdivia by Francisco Pizarro. He just gave it to him and said, "Go to it, young man." All right, well, so let's move on. Next, they went through. You might remember Andahuaylas. In the first letter, Almagro and the expedition got into a fight with some Indians here in rather hilly country. But so anyway, they passed through here again. Now, when Almagro went through here, he went, he and the guides led them down to Lake Titicaca on the eastern shore of the lake. Okay. Now, Valdivia, after being convinced by Ayar and de Merida and Montesinos that going a different way would be better, they strike out from Andahuaylas, not going southeast, but going south and then go west. So they leave Andahuaylas going south because they're going down the western side of Lake Titicaca, and we'll see that in a minute. Now, the evening that they were in, they camped outside Andahuaylas, Valdivia called the men together because he wanted to read them out the rules, his rules that would govern their behavior in the coming months. And every several weeks he repeated the reading of them. Now, these were not just, don't scratch your head, or don't tie your shoes when you're trying to ride your boots when you're trying to ride a horse. I mean, these were really serious things, and several of these rules, if you broke the rule, you were put to death. So this is serious stuff. All right, well, let's move on. Now we go to Rakchi. Now Rakchi is at this time it was still up and hadn't been raised because the Spanish came in here after Valdivia went through here, and they knocked down a lot of the buildings. But it was it served as a control point on the road between Cusco and the towns to the south. A 3-mile perimeter wall encircled several Inca buildings. On the other side of this wall stood an enclosure with 8 rectangular buildings around a bright courtyard. It was quite a place, and you can see remains of it today on the website. Now, something took place, an unfortunate thing took place here, and amidst the sadness afterwards, Inés de Suarez was involved here in a particular way, and you'll find out. And the men recognized her importance to the expedition, and to recognize that, they began to call her Doña Inés. Doña is a term of respect for for an exalted woman. Now, if you want to see what's left of the site, I've got some nice images nice pictures out there. Excuse me, on the website. Okay, next they came to Juliaca, and there's Lake Titicaca. Remember, we're going down the western side. Now, it's called the Windy City for good reason. I mean, the wind, and it's a cold wind, whips right off of Lake Titicaca. There, you can see it there. It'll freeze you right to where you stand. Now, it's also called, get this, Sock City and Knitting City, because the natives there knit a wide variety of wool clothes. Now, it was the same back then when Valdivia and the guys went through, and the Indians. And so both men and Indians bartered for warm clothing items. And they were going to need them, too, as they travel west to Putre. Okay, next they passed through Puno, and it was sort of interesting because Pedro de Merida, sort of brushes it off, just a small village. Well, it's fairly large today. It has 150,000 people, and it's an important livestock and agricultural region. And the elevation here is 12,600 feet. Next, it's on to Yave and Rio Yave, the river. Now they're going to start heading west. Now, see, you see the river there. And they're going to follow the Rio Yave for several hundred miles west. Now, here, Ancahuala commented that the Third Inca Army of 10,000 men to invade Chile passed here on their way west. That was, 40 years before, 50 years before. Now, the expedition is essentially going to go the same way over the coming weeks. And as I said, they'll have the Rio Yave to the south of them. They're going to essentially follow it. Okay, next they pass through a little settlement, and it's still a little settlement, Saraya. And there's, the river over there on the left. It's a little agricultural community. They just grow enough for, I guess, the people here. Not exactly sure what keeps them busy, but something does. Elevation's 12,000 feet. We're a little higher. Now here is where, at the river, Lieutenant Montesinos started up an activity with several of the men that they had engaged in, several of the men engaged in the third letter on the Avenue of the Volcanoes. And it was humorous. It was a lot of fun. The men enjoyed doing it. And you'll remember it when you read about it. But it made the villagers smile with what they did. Next is Cachuma. Yes, Cachuma is at 13,000 feet, 500. 13,050 feet, a little higher. Now, here, Demerida mentions that Doña Inés had made a request of Captain Valdivia for someone to help her tend the sick, especially the Indians, because there's 950 of them. There's about 55 Spanish by now. Ancahuala, their leader, chose a young Indian woman, a princess actually, by the name of Pilca Huaca. Now she goes by both names throughout the letters, Pilca Huaca. It's not uncommon. I mean, we have male and female names, here that have, there are two names, male and female. Mostly down south, but throughout the country. Now the name Pilca Huaca is newborn Inca women, girls, princesses, were given the names of the wives of previous Inca rulers. And so this is the name of, I don't know which Inca it was, several Incas before. Pilca Huaca, to assist Doña Inés with sick Indians. It's a wonderful portrait of the young woman, and reading it, one can't help but wonder if this woman someday might play a role in Pedro's life. Well, without going into that now, let's go to Matzo Cruz. 13,100 feet. That's another small settlement they came to. Still there today. Now here, it's an interesting aside here, and it really gets at this matter of, see, the Indians and Spanish are going to be working together in the new land. They're going to be planting crops together, raising livestock together, and the Spanish are going to be starting villages, and so they've got to work closely together and respect one another. And so Demerida here takes a moment to tell us what that looked like between the Spanish and the Indians. And it's a nice portrayal of how they interacted with each other. Okay, let's move on. Now here we come to Capazzo. Get this. This place is at 14,400 feet. And that's awfully high for a human settlement. And it's still there. It's very small. I think it has about 1,000 people. Now, in the last 40 years or so, there's been some cold snaps here. And it's usually cold. But I mean, it's been really cold, so cold that the men have driven their wives and children out to Putre for, take advantage of the warmer weather there. It's happened a couple of times recently. Well, last 30, 40 years. Okay, next they come to Charanya and Visviri. Now, these two towns are on the border, and let me turn on the border thing so you see. See it down there? The yellow line? Okay. This yellow line right there in the middle of the picture, as it comes back this way, to the right of that is Peru. To the left of it is Bolivia. And then this right in here, off to the side here, yeah, that's Peru over here. But the rest of this is Chile. So Visviri is on the Chile border. Charania is on the Bolivian border. And so it's a crossover point for people going both ways. Now, when they rode up to here, Montesinos made the comment that he could see the peak Tarapaca out in the distance. And it's over there. Tarapaca is, we'll get to that in a minute. It's out there. You might remember that's the peak that sits over Putre. So they're getting close. Now from here, they start going south, and they come to Pucará Copaquia. Now this is important. Remember, Pucará is a fortress, and Ayar commented that this fortress was used by surrounding villagers to stockpile it with food and dried fish and things like that for armies, army men either going from Cusco down to Chile or from Chile back to Peru. So now, some 15 or 20 years ago, a university in where the heck is it? I can't remember right now. In northern Chile, they took 10 years to restore the place. And they had a couple of university archaeologists lead the effort. But there's a real nice picture of it on the website. Okay, now they're going south, and they come to the site of, just down the way here, notice the rich farmland down there. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, there are the peaks Pomarape and Parinacota. Pomarape is on the left, and that is 20,610 feet. Parinacota is on the right at 20,827 feet. Beautiful peaks, absolutely beautiful. Now, Pedro de Merida remarks upon the agricultural communities they went through here, and it's not surprising, as I said. Look at the Bofidalis, the green meadows down there. There's plenty of water here, and he remarks upon the growing of vegetables and fruit. And he's going to come back here because in Putre he's going to lead some men out to look for food for the expedition, and they come out here and barter for food with the farmers. Okay, now next we're going to Jurasi. Now Jurasi sits, that's the Pacific Ocean out there at the top. Jurasi sits about 6 or 7 miles to the east of Putre. And it's a it's a place of thermal springs. And de Merida says that there were a couple of geysers there. Well, they're not there anymore. But he said that Indians and Spanish alike enjoyed the hot pools. And those are used today by tourists from Putre. They come out here, and there's a couple of little pools, small swimming pools and baths that provide some warmth. Well, next they finally got to Putre. And, excuse me. Now, the peak out there to the left, that's Tarapaca at 19,230 feet. And, yeah, as I said, that sits over the town. Now here is where Montesinos, Gomes de Benito, the second in command, Ancahual and one of his Indian lieutenants, they went out to Tacna to locate the men there trying to join up with Valdivia. What happened is this particular guy is Captain Viagra, and he had agreed with Valdivia that upon leaving Cusco, he would travel. Valdivia was going south, but Viagra would travel to Arequipa and then to Tacna, and along the way try to recruit some men for the expedition to Chile. And so he said, look, I'll be in Tacna in a couple of months. Just send somebody out to get us, and we'll join you from there. And so that's what happened. And so uh, he had 70 men, all on horseback. And so, Vicente and Gomes, they led Villagra and his 70 men back to Putre to join the expedition. Now, they spent several days, once Villagra and his men joined them, they spent several days getting ready for the ride out to the famous Avenue of the Volcanoes. You remember that. And they're going to travel that same route. Now, something happened here very nice. And you're going to read about it, okay? Just keep in mind, the emissary of merriment. The emissary of merriment. I mean, it's really very funny. Okay, well, that's it. And thank you very much for joining me for this.